Okay, we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that happened during the games, and so we're starting with round one. Right here in this situation, Robert and I, we talked a little bit about showing the Niv Mizzet, whether we wanted to do that or if we should just go ahead and concede. And we go ahead and concede. So I'm actually, it was Robert's call, so I want to let him talk a little bit about why.
We're at 7 life. Our best case scenario is drop Niv Mizzet, trade him with the centaur.
Yeah, because we don't want to let him scavenge the...
Don't let the scavenge onto the centaur. Oh, good lord. Either chump with the Lobber Crew or take 5 and be at 2 to then play Nivix Guildmage to allow Nivix Guildmage to chump the Deadbridge Goliath the next turn, and also that we could dig 2 more cards. One off of our draw and 1 off the Guildmage before it died. So in reality there, you're spending 3 minutes to see 2 more cards in a game that you have 2 life, he has 17, and a 5/5 on the board. It's a losing proposition. We're much better off with 20 minutes in 2 games. We can have a much better shot of winning it.
Yeah, and this comes back a little bit to our discussion earlier about what answer do we... Here is that Deadbridge Goliath that we passed, and what kind of answer do we have in our deck, right? We don't have a Tristani Stratagem. We don't have an Explosive Impact, right? There's not a lot of things that we can draw into that are going to be able to help us get out of this, and we have to trade off... We have to lose the Niv Mizzet, which is what would help us be able to come back and win the game. And so... yeah, we can maybe dig a little bit with the Guildmage, but then we have to chump with it. And if we dig, are we going to be able to cast something? So maybe we can get Annihilating Fire and copy it, but it's just such a long shot. And so for time considerations and whatnot, it seemed better. There is some value to not showing your bomb. It's different now because you can no longer watch other people's games until from in an event that you're in. You can't watch other players' matches and games until the event is over. So you can't scout anymore. So the showing a card doesn't mean as much now. But still, for him, when it comes to sideboarding and what he's doing...
he's got green, and he could have very easily put in Aerial Predation to take care of our bomb.
Yeah.
And we don't want to give him that information.
Yeah, I don't recall specifically, but I don't think we'd played any flyers, or probably none that mattered. I mean, the only other flyers we have are the Tower Drake and the Rune Wing. You're not going to bring in Aerial Predation for something like that.
Not to kill Rune Wing, no.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to skip ahead here to the next situation we want to talk about. Okay, so here we wanted to talk a little bit. This comes in Game 2 of Round 1, and something we talked about a little bit during the discussion during the draft about the Deadbridge Goliath. Here, our opponent has actually played the Mana Bloom, and he accelerates into a turn 3 Corpsejack Menace here, which very easily could have been a Deadbridge Goliath. And as it turns out, we have a Frostburn Weird in hand, which we wind up playing, and our opponent doesn't really work to maximize the advantage of his Corpsejack Menace, and is willing to just trade it off for a Frostburn Weird, which is probably poor play on his part. But that very easily he could have been a turn 3 Deadbridge Goliath, which we couldn't have traded so easily, with our Frostburn Weird. And so we just wanted to show this as an example of how sometimes that the Deadbridge Goliath can just completely beat your face in ways that you can't really answer effectively. So anything else you want to say?
Yeah, right there, the concession could have cost us the match, because if that had been the Deadbridge Goliath, we were probably done for. The lines of play we had after that would have been waiting for extra land to Izzet Charm, and then Frostburn Weird, a Deadbridge, and
then if he has any kind of pump or answer, then we lose our guys, and we're just...
Only to have him scavenge it back out onto whatever he plays next. Oh, look, a Corpsejack Menace.
Hi, 14/14 Corpsejack Menace. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, just reinforcing that the Deadbridge Goliath hate drafting is sometimes necessary. All right, we're going to jump ahead to the next thing. All right, so this is a little bit further in Game 2, and we just want to show you a little bit about... we talked about the counterspells a fair amount during our our earlier discussion. And here we've got a couple of them in our hand, both the Essence Backlash and an Izzet Charm. And he goes to play a Knightly Valor here, and we are able to counter it with the Izzet Charm. And we talked about how with the counterspells, you can't do a draw go style kind of thing where you stop everything they do, but situationally you're able to stop like the one thing that's really relevant. If this Knightly Valor resolves, he's probably able to just kind of run over us, and we won't be able to. We'll have a really hard time, dealing with that. But instead, we are able to, stop it and get some extra damage off of our Lobber Crew and go on to be able to kind of control the board. And this is actually the turn where he continues to attack with the Corpse Jack Menace, and we're able to trade it off with a Frostburn Weird, which is probably, again, like I said, not what he really wanted to do. Oh, and we will comment. We keep in the video saying like, oh, make sure to tap the Lobber Crew before we cast our multicolored spell. You can actually, his trigger will go on the stack, and you can use the ability in response to his trigger. We always did that because it's easy in MTGO to accidentally click past it, which we didn't really want to do. And there is Knightly Valor is canceled, countered, and so yeah, it's just one of the examples, many that came up through these games of getting the counter kind of at the right time and just completely changing the the outcome of the game. And I think we're about to block here and pump our Frostburn and trade off.
Yeah, even though he still has the 1 mana and we've seen giant growth out of him, our only hope is to kill it now.
Yeah, so like if he has a giant growth, we're still in a little bit of trouble, but he doesn't have a lot of cards in his hand, and we have a chance of being able to dig ourselves out even if he has a giant growth. And we thought during the whole time that he was gonna, pump it, and we were quite surprised that he didn't. So this actually works out, from here. Then from here on out, he just has a Concordia Pegasus, and we're able to pretty easily take over the game. And here we are a little bit later in that same game. We have proceeded to play the Izzet Staticaster we had in our hand, the Gutter Snipe that we had in our hand earlier, and another Gutter Snipe that we drew into. And we still have the Essence Backlash from earlier, and we've drawn into a Counterflux. And this is a pretty obvious example with, again, the counter spells, letting us be able to kind of control the game. We are pressuring him just with, we have Lobber Crew for a steady tick down of damage. And we've been able to, get in there with our Gutter Snipes, and he's at 9 life, which is not a super low amount of life, but with the Gutter Snipes and the Lobber Crews and everything on the table, he's actually much closer to being dead than probably he even realizes. So he's actually about to try and resolve a creature, and because he has to play something, because otherwise we just beat him to death with the Gutter Snipes and the Lobber Crew, but if he tries to resolve a creature, we're just going to hit him really hard, which is exactly what happens.
Yep, here it is, folks. It's not just a place you hear about on the boards. Magical Christmas Land. We visited for a short time.
Yeah, and this is obviously like the perfect thing for an Izzet deck. We have 2 Gutter Snipes and a Lobber Crew and a dual-colored counterspell that makes him take damage, right? This is like as good as it gets. But it was a real-life situation. It actually did happen. And also goes to show, it's only a 2-power creature, right? We're not even nailing a Deadbridge Goliath where he would just be dead, right? It's only got 2 power, but even that is still quite enough. We get in there with the 1 extra damage off of the Lobber Crew, and the 4 damage from the Gutter Snipe, and the 2 damage from counter attack. And he also winds up without his guy on the board. It is like just a massive swing. And because we had enough pressure on the board, we were forcing him to play into
our counterspells.
Yeah. So this is just it's a great example of when and how counterspells work really well. And obviously then he concedes here shortly because our Lobber Crew is just going to kill him. And here we are coming up on the end of game 3 in this round. And just a little thing I wanted to mention, I said something in the video where I talked about how we can kill him by playing our Thought Flare and doing 4 damage off of our Gutter Snipes, and then if we draw the right land, being able to untap, play the Splatter Thug, and counterflux our own Splatter Thug to just kill him with the Gutter Snipes. Of course, a counterflux can only counter spells you don't control. So that we didn't need it, but it actually wouldn't have worked. And I'm sure a bunch of you guys were going to call me on it in the comments, and we do actually know that, and we did realize it. We're going to point it out for any of the rest of you who maybe hadn't occurred to.
Yeah, something all Magic players love to do, and we're guilty of it as well, is make declarative statements about how awesome we are and some of the great things we can do. But something that all Magic players, even us, like doing more than that is catching somebody and making false declarative statements. So even though he called himself on it, I'm going to say it anyway. No, you can't, Gus.
All right, we'll be back in a sec here with some notes from round 2. Hey guys, so here we are in round 2. And this is the match that winds up going to time. But there's a bunch of little interactions in here, and we were stuck on mana for obviously a really long time, and we had to play really carefully and really tightly. And we have the counterspells in our hand, and our opponent isn't really putting a lot of pressure on us. So we have a lot of stuff where we kind of are playing things out slowly and consistently trying to keep up mana for our counterspells, and trying not to get too far behind and trying not to let our opponent just race out ahead and just kill us before we can get our mana and stabilize. And it does take quite some time. But so one of the things that comes up here is our opponent plays a Grizzly Salvage, and we decide to counter it. And so, which might seem like something of a waste. But we knew our opponent already had a bunch of mana on the table. And so we don't want to waste the Izzet Charm, because the Izzet Charm can still can counter any non-creature and can kill creature that has a lot more versatility. We eventually wind up using it to kill the Dagger Drum Imp, but we decided to go ahead and use the Dispel because this guy's not playing a lot of things that were going to get hit by Dispel. But he had enough mana at the time that if he hit any big bomb creatures, he was probably going to be able to play them. We were going to have a hard time dealing with it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention specifically, a lot of you guys know this, is obviously the Grizzly Salvage can dump a bunch of Scavenge guys into the graveyard and generate some kind of pseudo card advantage. And with the Dagger Dome Imp there is a great target for scavenging onto. And if it got... we had the Izzet Charm to potentially kill it in response or whatever, but he could just get a lot of card advantage and force our hands. We were just too far behind. And so letting him dig for the bomb was not a good idea, even though a lot of times you normally just let the Grizzly Salvage resolve and try and hit, whatever they get with it. Anything else?
A big difference between this game 1 and game 1 in round 1 is, yes, we get down to low life, and yes, he stays at high life, except our board state is we have threats in hand, we have the turnaround in hand, and we turn around and win. It's a guaranteed turnaround. It's not a digging and hoping turnaround, which is the difference between this and game 1, round 1.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to skip ahead to the next thing. All right, this is just a few turns later in that same game. We're still mana constrained. We haven't drawn any more lands. We've killed off the Dagger Drum Imp because our opponent played Street Sweeper, and we figured that we needed to free up some mana so that we could play some stuff to try and deal with the Street Sweeper. So one thing I wanted to point out, this is a kind of a big topic, and we can't go into too much depth, but in this situation, our opponent is completely tapped out, and we know in this format there's not much that he can do when he's tapped out. We here decide not to, we don't even really consider attacking with our Splatter Thug, which is a 3/3 with first strike, and because the Street Sweeper is a 4/6. And I just want to mention that this is revealing to our opponent that we do not have any kind of tricks or like an Annihilating Fire specifically, which we had already played. You can see there's Annihilating Fire in our graveyard right now already. So our opponent knows that we can have them, and we do actually have 3 in our deck, which he probably doesn't know. But basically, because this is an interesting dynamic in Return to Ravnica, especially limited, because all these Unleashed guys can't block. Anytime you do not attack with a Unleashed guy, you're revealing something about what you do or don't have in your hand. Although you could also potentially be trying to do some reverse psychology bluffing, where you actually do have the trick in your hand, but don't attack for some reason to make them think you don't have the trick. Although under most circumstances, you probably, if you have the trick, you want to go ahead and get in your damage or get rid of their thing while when you have the chance. And this is also one of those things where on MTGO it's much tougher because there's no body language, right? So there's no way for you to try and trick them by showing like confidence or whatever. If you attack with a Splatter Thug in a scenario like this, hoping that your opponent believes that you have the trick, he's pretty much going to run it by the numbers. And basically, he may even decide that if you have the trick, he wants to get it out of your hand. Like, there's a lot of scenarios where you can just lose. Bluffing is in a situation like this is a lot tougher. And so, generally speaking, by not attacking, you're kind of advertising that you don't have stuff in their hand, which then helps them with their play for the rest of the game. So, anything else you'd like to add?
Did he play the Street Sweeper this turn?
Yeah, he just played the Street Sweeper.
So then he has the Axebane Guardian mana up.
Oh yeah, he does have Axebane Guardian mana up. He only has one card in hand. Yeah, completely neglected that in all my analysis, and that's an easy thing to overlook. Where you're like, oh, he's all tapped out, but no, actually he has an Axebane Guardian. He could have some mana.
Sorry about that, Gus.
Yeah, makes that potential attack and bluff even worse. So we don't attack, and generally speaking, the like just really true complete bluffs where like if they call you, you're just completely hosed. It's obviously risky, and in a situation like this where he's at 22 and we're at 15 and we're trying to stabilize, we're not going to win this game unless we get rid of the Street Sweeper. Getting into the 3 extra damage right now, even if he decides not to block and not to take any risks, getting the 3 extra damage is not important unless we can get rid of that Street Sweeper anyways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, go on to the next thing.
Yeah, and here we are, later in that game, after we've taken care of the Street Sweeper. You can see it's exiled off on the side there. We draw the mana to go with our Niv Mizzet, and I make the call, and I'm so proud of myself because I'm about to take out all of his creatures. So good.
Woo!
So, here we go. Some of you will remember this, and I'm, you hear me all happy and upbeat. Go back and watch the video. It's a thing.
Robert's like, oh wait, we can attack.
And Gus is like, why? Why do you want to attack? And I say, because I want to put him off of his creatures, which is an extremely valid point.
Yeah, a lot of people were probably thinking like, wait a minute, don't you just want to draw a card here? And a lot of times the answer is yes, and maybe the answer is even yes here. But as you see, we as it turns out, he does have the removal for Niv Mizzet. We don't get a lot of advantage off of him, and we clear out a guy who's just going to chump block us for ages.
Ages, meaning no winning the game. Actually killing the Axebane Guardian does open up one of our paths of victory, and we've watched it a couple of times, and pretty much if we keep Niv Mizzet until we can counterflux him alive, we end up in the same situation where we end up trading Niv Mizzet off for a giant, because he would have been able to scavenge the Dreg Mangler on the turn that we would have been able to play Niv Mizzet. He would have been able to scavenge the Dreg Mangler onto the Dread Reveler, and that would have been it.
Yeah, basically, like, it takes us quite a while before we actually wind up with our land, despite the fact that we start looting and these other things. So it obviously it works out for us. We still win this game. But having that Axebane Guardian sitting there able to absorb some damage, especially when we're down 22-3, and it's gonna we need time. We got to finish him off. It would have slowed us down.
Because look at how beautiful this board is. We have 7 toughness on board. That's 4 turns. 10 minutes, 4 turns. It's beautiful.
And obviously it seemed extremely unlikely at the time, that he was sitting there holding something that could answer Niv Mizzet, because there's not a lot of things that will answer Niv Mizzet.
Well, there's one. I mean, oh yeah, it's a Assassin Strike. There it is, right there.
Yeah, because like he would. This is game 1. He's probably not main decking, aerial predation and whatever, and so. I mean, ultimate price doesn't hit Niv Mizzet, and he could stab wound Niv Mizzet, which would be which would definitely have been problematic. If he'd stab wounded Niv-Mizzet, we probably would have had to attack and then ping Niv-Mizzet himself to death.
He didn't have any flying blockers.
Yeah, but at only 3 life, it would only taken 2 turns. Like, we'd go down to 1, and we would have had to attack, do the 3 damage, draw a card, ping him probably for 1 to draw another card, and then, spend the 6 mana to ping himself 3 times to kill himself.
That's so bad. Something I love about Stab Wound. Next.
So earlier we were telling you about the Nivix Guild Mage can be really good, and we've actually had a few things go by. We've copied some Annihilating Fires. We've actually done it twice to kill 2 of his guys. And now here, we're getting into the late game, and we're kind of a little mana flooded, and we're going to start looting with our Nivix Guild Mage to actually draw into stuff. And so we actually, the first time here, this is actually I think the second or third time we are looting in the game, and we wind up, we've got a couple of mountains, and we ditch a mountain and we draw into a Thought Flare. And you can see here in this situation again the power of Thought Flare as well, as it just lets us dig for a lot of stuff. You will also note, like, we actually weren't really paying attention because we were a little on time. We didn't actually really notice that we were running low on cards in our library.
We finished the game with 3 cards in the library, and we say not one word about it. With a looter on board that we are just tap happy crapping cards out of our hand.
Yeah, but we do know that we are digging for. There is a third Annihilating Fire in our deck, which we're trying. We don't really specify. We don't mention it to you, but we both know that we have the Annihilating Fire that we're trying to get to, which will kind of like seal the game for us. So we, despite the fact that we were getting down to only a few cards left in our library, we were still pretty. We were in a pretty commanding position and pretty secure. I mean, unless a guy drops Thragtusk or whatever.
Yeah, but we were completely oblivious.
Thragtusk is M13. That's not in Return to Ravnica.
Very funny, guys. Yeah, you snuck that in there. Okay, but we were seconds away from comedy gold of us losing the game due to drawing out our deck and being completely unaware of it. You would have loved us. We would have been instant internet sensations, world famous in Poland.
Yeah. So we're just dig happy, and here I think it's actually going to be on the next turn where we're going to loot again at the end of this turn, and then we're going to loot 2 or 3 times on the next turn, and because we looted into a Thought Flare, which is kind of like a looter kind of card. So we only actually used the loot ability, but here coming up we're actually going to wind up taking advantage of the fact that you can loot multiple times in the same turn. And
how?
Yeah, because we wind up because we actually this is a problem with so many decks, right? We actually wind up drawing into we have an island, and our next 2 or 3 or 4 cards in a row I think are lands.
It was pretty brutal, but then of course we have game on board.
Yeah, I mean we've crawled back. He was at 22, now he's at 10, and so we're actually kind of closing in. So. Oh, actually, so we looted once on our turn, right? And now we're looting it on his turn. So that's an island. So that's 2 lands in a row there. And now we untap. We draw a land. That's 3 lands in a row, right? And
we're gonna loot twice.
Well, so first we loot to see what we draw, and boom, and we decide we're probably not going to be Rogue's Passaging this turn because we need to probably cast something. Boom, that's a 4th land in a row, right?
Yeah, the kill clock is 3 turns whether we force through damage on Rogue's Passage this turn or not. Yeah.
So now, because we got another land, we're just all right, well, screw it. We're just going to do it again because we have an Is It Static Caster, which we're going to have to... And there's a 5th land in a row. Right. And so...
neither one of us has paid any attention to the fact that our library has 5 cards in it.
Yeah, but, I mean, we would have been pretty toast. The fact that we were able to ditch 4 lands in a row off the top of our library over the course of 2 turns, right? Because we looted 4 times in 2 turns, and were able to get to the he did have some it's he might have drawn something. He was still at 10 life. He could have drawn something relevant. It turned out maybe we might not have won actually.
No, if we'd given him all those turns, we would not have won.
Yeah, if we'd just been land. Us being at 3 life was just. he would get something going. And in here, actually, I think we loot for I think we don't play the Staticaster here, right? We just wind up looting
loot again.
Yeah. And I think maybe this time, so we've done 5 lands in a row. I think this time we finally get something relevant.
We get the Bloodfray Giant.
Or did we? I don't remember if we loot it or if we draw into it on our turn.
Well, we get our win. Oh,
because we get the Trader's Instinct and then we get the Bloodfray Giant, I think. Yeah. So 5 lands in a row, and yeah, so that's 5 lootings that we did over the course of 2 turns, and to actually to get us into our win condition, and now we win on this. Not surprisingly, here we're able to win on this turn after
several ways of doing it. We could have Trader's Instinct on either of the 2 guys who are in play already, Rogue's Passage them, and attack with the bird, 2 damage from the Gutter Snipe, 4.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options
through the bird, but we want to show off for some reason. We don't show off any cards earlier, but we show off this one.
Yeah, we didn't mention during the gameplay video an interesting option is to actually play the Trader's Instinct and copy it with the Guildmage and take both of his guys. Obviously, the
only one drawback if he had, if he had the Druid's Passage, if he had the Druid's Deliverance, he would have played it now. And
yeah, so we
would have had blockers back to not die to his counterattack.
Yeah, because by the Trader's Instinct puts him at 6 already, and then if we take his 2 guys, his Sluiceway Scorpion attacks for 4, and then we only have to attack with 1 of our 3 guys, keeping the Bloodfray Giant back in our hand, right? So then we have 2 blockers back. Probably we leave back the Rune Wing because if it blocks, we draw a card. Although again, the only 2 cards left in our library. No, it's 3 cards in our library now. But anyway, we were trying to play around the potential of having something like Druid's Deliverance or whatever, so that we wind up with exact damage here because we've been for a long time, because we're at 3 life. We've been worried about him having some kind of hasty attacker, and we keep leaving a blocker back because it sucks to just he top decks
Drag Mangler done.
Yeah. So it's unlikely that he has 2 of them, but hey, we have 2 Gutter Snipes,
and 3 Annihilating Fires.
So this kind of thing happens. All right, and we're going to skip ahead a little bit here.
Yes, and here during sideboarding is the return sally from Gus of the "oh really," because he asked me, hey, does he have any good targets for us to need Mizium Skin? And I say, why, no, he does not have an Assassin Strike that killed our Niv Mizzet in game 1. No good targets at all. Let's leave it in the sideboard. And so we do.
Yeah, that was one of those kind of moments when we listened back to it. I don't know that we really needed the Mizium Skin. He didn't have a lot of things, but for us to just be like, he didn't have anything. We didn't see a single thing. And it was just the thing that killed our Niv Mizzet.
We're just going to completely ignore that part.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else here for round 2?
A little bit later, yes.
Okay, we'll see you in a second.
So here we are, late in the game. We're late on time, and we're going to Annihilating Fire him to the face. The experienced players will understand. But for those of you who aren't, we'll give an explanation because this is how you learn. If either it happens to you or you watch it happen to somebody else.
Yeah, so we actually kind of went past there kind of fast. On our previous turn, we had attacked with our Frostburn Weird and left mana up for the Annihilating Fire in case he played a creature that we needed to kill. Then he didn't do anything. He didn't play anything. He just passed turn. And at that point, because of how low we were on time and how low we were on mana, we couldn't afford to not use the mana and get damage in. So we had to, and also we had a second Annihilating Fire in our hand, which makes it even easier in case he still plays something later that we need to kill. But so in order for us to have any chance of winning this game with only 2 minutes left on our clock, we had to go ahead and get some damage in. And so we go ahead and just Annihilating Fire to the face. Hey guys, here is game 1 in round 3. This game is a really strange game. We keep a kind of speculative hand with a bunch of islands and a Frostburn Weird and some red cards. hoping that we'll eventually draw into some mountains. And our opponent also keeps kind of probably a poor hand where he doesn't have much of anything to do until turn 4. And it turns out that Frostburn Weird, when unopposed, is pretty strong. And we get in for 12 damage on a Frostburn Weird before he even plays a dude. Then we would be getting punished here because we draw 3 more lands without drawing a mountain. But we do draw a Rogue's Passage. And we mentioned during the initial draft video that Rogue's Passage can just win games, and this is the most purest example of Rogue's Passage just winning a game, because all we have is one creature and a Rogue's Passage, and he's put down an Armory Guard who would be able to block Frostburn Weird all day long, without some other kind of trick,
or simply a forest to go with his Selesnya rune without the Rogue's Passage, and we're that's it. We're sitting here waiting. This is a 20-minute game instead of a 4-minute blowout.
Yeah, maybe the Frostburn Weird would trade with the 3/3, whereas it can't trade with the Armory Guard.
No, the Armory Guard is too big at 2/5.
Yeah, so at this point here, just being able to start suiting up the. Not really shooting up, but just sending our Frostburn Weird underground or through the secret passage or whatever it is to get through for a couple of damage. And obviously, combined with the fact that, he has no pressure, and combined with the fact that we already got in 12 damage and he's just, in a really bad position.
And this is also the thing that we were talking about, applying pressure with aggro in order for our counter spells to be better. We don't have any of them right now. Well, we have one, but we can't cast it. But that's the point.
Yeah, so he's just, your opponent stumbles a little bit, they get behind, you apply the pressure, and you just finish them off. And so we just go on here to play a couple lands and, attack with Frostburn Weird with Rogue's Passage and kill them off. So there's not a whole lot to say during this match. We do make a couple of mistakes, small things, towards the end of game 2, because we're kind of thoroughly in control, but we'll skip ahead and show that to you. So this whole second game of round 3 is actually kind of an interesting example. Our aggro cards and our card quality are so much better than his. We get stuck on land. We've been stuck on land so many times throughout this whole event. But this time, we're able to go turn 1 Civic Saber and turn 2 Frostburn Weird and just beat face with that. Even though we get stuck on 3 lands for a long time and 4 lands for a long time, our card quality is so much better that he's playing out creatures that are they're okay guys, and they work well in some decks, but we're in control of the game the whole time, despite the fact that we are kind of stuck on 3 and 4 lands. And we're able to save back our big, powerful finishers, that in case he's able to answer any of our threats, then eventually we'll draw lands and play our big finishers. And so, like Robert was saying earlier, it's a great example of kind of applying pressure.
And we get so far ahead, we get, we're breaking our arms, patting ourselves on the back and patting each other on the back, that we make 2 bonehead maneuvers in a row right here.
Yeah, so he's just played this Tower Drake with a bunch of planes untapped, and we have an Is This Datacaster.
And I comment, why? That's a big Drake. And that should have been a clue to me that we can make it smaller. We can pick this guy apart, and we just skip it.
Now, it turns out it doesn't actually matter in this game, but this is a common pitfall of a lot of players, where they dismiss the mistakes that they make of it didn't matter, right? And, but it could matter a lot next time. And so you can't let yourself off the hook and, forget about these things or let them go just because it didn't happen to matter this game. The mistake is still a mistake.
So, we should have shot him so that he would have to use at least one of the white mana this turn, so that next turn, if we get Annihilating Fire, he cannot pump it high enough to save it. Because that increases our outs from any land to any land or Annihilating Fire. And seeing as how we have 3 Annihilating Fires in the deck, that's quite an increase, actually.
Yeah. And so we blithely, just kind of let the turn pass. And obviously, this is one of the cases, right? We don't even use our StatCaster on anything, right? This is like, this is a no-cost thing, right? We just forget, right? So that's just like, clear, flat-out mistake. And now we come and we draw our land, and we're able to detain his guy. And so let's go ahead and cast this guy. And Robert's trying to target the opponent with the target the Drake with the Skywatch, but actually has to wait for the ability. Okay, now you target the tower.
Call me out. It's okay.
Yeah. All right, so now the Skywatch here is now detained, and we're able to just like attack through for the victory and whatever, yada yada yada. But it's now detained, which means
that we could have shot it again, and this time he could not have pumped it. Pumping its toughness is an activated ability. So we skip 2 golden opportunities to kill this little sucker, and it's not like he could have... In this particular situation, I can't think of a card where letting him have the Drake would have made a difference, but that doesn't mean that you do
besides
this.
The point.
It's totally besides the point. You should always take out your opponent's resources when you have a solid chance to.
Yep. All right. Well, hey guys, I hope that you have found these debriefs to be interesting, and the things that we caught and showed you were informative. Like we said at the beginning, we think this kind of thing is an important part of the learning process and improving. Not only watching us go back through our games, but for you to be able to kind of go back through some of your own games. And if you play on MTGO, for the most part, it tries to keep your game so that you can go back and review the replays. And if you don't know how to do that, you should probably Google it or look it up, or maybe we'll explain it in the article if we can. And go back and watch your games, especially competitive ones from a tournament. Go back and review them to try and find your own mistakes or examine alternate lines of play. And if you have a friend or a buddy who can kind of go through it with you, or you can talk with about it, that's also generally pretty helpful.
All right, hope you guys had fun, and hope you come back next time.